Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis, and we have got an absolute ton to discuss on the Monday edition of Outkick the Show. I hope all of you are having fantastic Mondays wherever you may be across the country or around the world. Today is my 41st birthday. I plan on spending it with my three boys, 12, 9, and 5, and my wife, who's making a cake downstairs as we speak. And I spent a lot of time yesterday thinking about this whole coronavirus story in general and how ultimately it is a perfect metaphor for the way in which people choose to view the world. Let me explain. There are certain people out there who are doom and gloomers, the corona bros of the universe, as I called them, that believe in negativity and the power of awfulness. They marinate in failure. They subsume themselves to the idea of negativity. They allow pessimism to be their idol. Let me tell you this straight off the show today. Pessimism always loses to optimism. The history of the world and the history of America is that things get better almost every day. Doesn't make news because good news often doesn't make news. But if you are a pessimist, if you embrace negativity, you might be right for a day, you might be right for a week, you might even be right for a month, maybe sometimes, rarely, you're going to be right for a year. But in the end, you lose because optimism always triumphs. And what's so fascinating to me is social media very often seems steeped to me in negativity. We're all the little blue check marks who run around that don't have much of an audience. They sit and obsess and stew over awfulness and decide to share it out into the public. And even worse than that, they get upset at people like me who are innate optimists and are here to tell you we're going to kick the coronavirus's ass. How many people in the world of sports have been consistently telling you that? Not very many. How many people in the world of media have been consistently telling you that? Not very many. And so as you run through all of these data that we're about to share, as all of the positivity rains down upon you, because I believe we are effectively through the worst of the coronavirus outbreak, I want you to put this in the back of your mind. It doesn't pay to believe in negativity. It doesn't pay to be a pessimist. I'm not saying being unrealistic. I'm saying believing in failure is not in any way supported by the historical record. And so, yesterday, total daily cases declined and deaths declined fairly substantially in New York. Moreover, over the past 6 days, nearly a week, we have effectively hit a plateau in deaths. New York, according to Andrew Cuomo today, has hit a massive decline in overall hospitalizations. In all of Europe right now, in particular the three hardest hit cities, states, countries, Italy, Spain, and Germany. All three of those countries are kicking the coronavirus's ass right now. Italy, I'm going to read you some numbers here. Italy has now done what many people said was impossible. Italy has decided to kick the coronavirus's ass to the curb. Italy has, let me get you the data here. Italy has hit 15 straight days of lower daily cases than their peak that they hit on March 21st. They have posted the lowest daily total of new infections, new cases, since all the way back at March 18th. 9 days of declining deaths since a peak of March 27th, and fewest deaths in their country since March 20th. They're already talking about how to open back up Italy. Germany hit its lowest level of daily new cases since March 24th. They have posted a decline of 9 straight days since a peak of new cases occurred. They have 4 straight days of declining deaths since their peak. Spain, fewest new cases since March 22nd. They have now 10 straight days of decline since their peak of new cases on March 26th. This is the fewest deaths they have had in Spain since March 25th. 4 straight days of declining deaths since their peak. All of these 100% accurate data that matters. Now, the Corona bros are obsessed with pointing out things that I got wrong. And I'll give you a rundown of the things that I got wrong right off the start here. Not been perfect. It's a constantly fluctuating informational dynamic. And all of my facts have been 100% right, but all of my interpretation of that data has not been 100% right. I'll give you an example. I should not have, but I did. I trusted the data that came out of China. The thing that I got most wrong about the coronavirus across the board was that I trusted the data that came out of China. China said that 80,000 people roughly had been infected and only 3,000 people died. Now you might say to yourself, well, Clay, why did you trust the opinions that you saw, the data coming out of China? I did because the World Health Organization, who we need to investigate, endorsed in many ways the data that came out of China. And so when I looked at China and the numbers from China in conjunction with South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, all of these other Asian countries which did not have large outbreaks, the lesson that I took from Asia was this is a disease that even if there is a massive outbreak, it can easily be stopped with a minimal loss of life. If I had known, and if the world indeed had known, which is why there needs to be severe consequences raining down upon China, if the world had known that, according to multiple media outlets now, tens of thousands of people had died in China and hundreds of thousands of people had actually gotten the virus, then the response in Europe and the United States would have been different because the threat level would have been magnified. We didn't have that information. So initially, I said that based on everything that had happened in Asia, I didn't believe that this was going to be that big of a deal in the United States. I also said I would be very surprised if the death total from the coronavirus exceeded the yearly death total from the flu. I was one of the only people who put that out there at all. It looks like I'm going to be correct about the coronavirus death total being lower than the death total of the average flu outbreak in the United States every year. I'm going to be wrong about there only being a few thousand deaths in the United States because of China. But my analysis has actually been infinitely better than all of these models that these epidemiologists put out. This guy at the Imperial College over in London said over 2 million people were going to die from the coronavirus. That is clearly laughably absurd. Even the most recent model, which was cited as recently as last week, that said between 100 and 200,000 roughly people were going to die, is also, from the University of Washington, is also a complete failure. Even without having the right data from China, I did a better job forecasting what was going to happen from the coronavirus in the United States relative to the number of people who are going to die from this than any of the models which received massive media attention. Why was that? Because there is a predisposition in the media to embrace awful forecasts because people click on them more. If you hear, oh, fewer people are going to die from the coronavirus than typically die from the flu every year, you don't click on that link. If you hear more people are going to die likely in car accidents every year than die from the coronavirus, you don't click on that link. But look at what the media has done to sell you the absolute most in fear porn. This is a USA Today headline, one of the nation's largest newspapers. All right? Let's look at this here in a sec because it's absolutely wild when you consider it in context at how crazy it is that this is a headline that is allowed to be out there circulating all around the United States. This is total media fear porn, and I'm going to hold it up for you. USA Today, 10,000 dead of coronavirus in the USA, more fatalities than 6 wars combined. Let me see if I can keep the light from catching this. Can you guys see this? You can see it now on Periscope. You can see it now on Facebook. You can go check it out on Twitter if you would like. The headline is 10,000 dead of coronavirus in the USA, more fatalities than 6 wars combined. They don't tell you what 6 wars they are. Is it the Cold War? Is it Panama? Is it Grenada? I mean, what 6 wars is it? A more truthful way of putting that headline would be 10,000 dead of the coronavirus. In the United States, every day, 7,500 people die. So the coronavirus has just recently passed, after all of this attention we've been giving it, the average number of people who die every day in the United States. And the coronavirus is likely to kill fewer people than the flu does on a yearly basis. Now, this is going to be a fascinating study in the years ahead. And I actually think the positive from the coronavirus is we are now more prepared for a pandemic if one becomes more severe in the future. And what I mean by that is if there's actually one that threatens a lot more people, I think what's going to end up happening when all this study is done, I think this is going to be a very, this is my prediction, okay, based on the data. And the data out there that actually has been supported by Stanford scientists, by Oxford scientists, by Harvard scientists. I think that we got a tiny fraction of the overall people who were infected by the coronavirus. And I've been talking about this since the NBA players were tested. And as a result, I think that the death rate on this is going to be incredibly low, but the infection rate may be very high. Dr. Fauci said yesterday that as many, in his opinion, as half of all infected people never know they have it. And so as a result, I think, and by the way, the head of Australia medicine in their country agrees, I think there probably is a 10 times at least, and it may be higher than 10 times, the infection rate, which means that this thing spreads rapidly, but doesn't actually infect very many people to cause massive hospitalization and dangers. Okay? I think that's what the final study is going to show. But I'm going to write about this. I'm going to talk about this a lot because I think what we ended up in was a world where if you weren't peddling the worst possible case scenario, it was used as evidence that you didn't care about people dying. And this actually reminds me of 9/11. In the wake of 9/11, if you ask questions about whether it made sense to go to war in the Middle East, people said, you aren't a patriot. And in the midst of the coronavirus, if you ask questions about whether our response was overwrought or didn't make sense, a bunch of people on social media tried to shout you down by arguing that you didn't care about old people or didn't care about people dying. Plainly, that's absurd. What I care about is a full, flourished debate so that we don't end up making a rush to judgment because everybody rushes to end up in the same place. And that's why I think all this groupthink that took control of things on social media scared so many of our political leaders from actually asking questions. We still don't have basic data about the coronavirus. We don't know how infectious it is. We don't know what percentage of the population gets it. We don't know how many people are asymptomatic. We don't know what the antigen levels are. In other words, we haven't been able to test the blood to get a sample size for how many people have already had the coronavirus. All of these actually matter a great deal, and we still don't have all of that information. But again, the key is we are kicking the coronavirus's ass, as I told you we would, and now it's time to pivot and start talking about sports. The English Premier League is considering a return of June or July in a bubble-like environment, according to at least one of the tabloids in England. The PGA, God bless the PGA, finally stepping out there and making a decision and setting up what could be an incredible fall for all of us think about this right now. I want to hit you with the PGA's announcement. They are bringing back so much. We've got the Masters in November. We've got the U.S. Open in September. We've got in August the PGA all scheduled, and there's talk that the Memorial could come back midway through June. Okay? If an American sports league is not aggressively exploring how to return to action right now, then they're not paying attention to the data. Because even the data in the University of Washington's model that projects 80,000 people might die, it basically says this thing is over by June 1. And so as a result, I believe we are setting up for an incredible summer and an incredible fall. Let me hit you with some of the stuff that could all run together. Starting in August, we could have the Indy 500, followed the next weekend by college football week 0, then the U.S. Open in tennis, then the Kentucky Derby, then college football week 1, then the NFL opener, all of that, by the way, in 13 days. Then Canelo Triple G, NFL week 1, the U.S. Open, golf, the French Open, and the Ryder Cup. All of that is in 30 days. We're talking about August 23rd all the way to 9/25. That doesn't even count baseball. It doesn't even count the NBA, which may well be in its playoffs. Those are just events that have been rescheduled and appear to be a go right now. Then we've got the Masters in November, the day after Tennessee plays Georgia, setting up what could be one of the all-time Southern sports weekends that has ever existed. You could go down to Athens, Georgia, which is as fine of a college town as exists anywhere in America. You could probably go to what I bet will be a night game on Saturday between Tennessee and Georgia. You could wake up the next morning, get down to Augusta, and go watch Sunday at the Masters in November. Instead of spring at Augusta, with all the blooms coming, you will have fall at Augusta with all the majestic scenery that comes with fall all over the South. Tell me that that is not one of the best weekends in the history of Southern sports. Your boy here right now is about to add that to my November schedule. Because I think college football, as I've been telling you, is going to be back. I believe the NFL is going to be back. All of it is going to be off and running, and I can't wait to dive in like hitting a pool on a hot summer day when you've been outside running around and you just get to dive right into the water. You know how good that feels? Do you know how spectacular it feels to jump right in and hit the water? That will be absolutely incredible, and that is where we are headed. Every league needs to be planning right now to try to get things done because sports is going to be back sooner rather than later. Not sure that fans will be there initially, but I've been saying, you can go listen to my Outkick the Coverage radio show. I've been saying that I believe sports will be back in June for a long time, and it looks like it's going to happen. All right, props to the WWE. I watched Wrestlemania on Saturday. I watched Wrestlemania on Sunday with my boys. It was a tough thing to turn around. WrestleMania could have done what everybody else did and say, you know what, we can't do it. We're going to postpone it for months. But instead, I thought they put on a hell of a show on back-to-back days. Congratulations to Rob Gronkowski for being the 24/7 belt champion. Formerly of the Patriots. He's got 3 Super Bowls and now a WWE belt. It was, I thought, a lot of fun to watch. I know it was different because there wasn't a lot of ambient noise from the crowd, but I kind of enjoyed listening to the wrestlers talk back and forth. And I liked my boy Otis getting the best outkick of the night with his big win and then his big kiss. This is one of the best parts of this story in general. Finally, the NFL has now announced that they are going to have a virtual draft. That means that everybody will be drafting from their homes or their offices or wherever that's going to be. The NFL draft is still going on April 23rd, and I got to give props to the NFL. Some people in the checkmark mafia in the sports media, checkmark mafia, were furious at the NFL for keeping free agency open. And they've been furious at the NFL for going on with the draft. I think the NFL has powered right through the coronavirus like they should have. I think they have made the right decisions. Props to the NFL for getting the draft coming up in a couple of weeks. This is going to be must-see television, as it always is. The 23rd, the 24th, the 25th. I will point out, however, the WNBA is having a draft on April 17th. That's the week before the NFL. The NFL has been ripped by the usual blue checkmark mafia on social media. Have you seen a single person rip the WNBA for having their draft? Because I haven't. I've seen a lot of people trying to go after the NFL. But the WNBA is having their draft the week before, and no one has criticized it at all. It's almost like, just tossing this out there, it's almost like people in sports media play favorites and don't treat every league the same. Almost. Almost like a lot of those guys are big, huge hypocrites in the checkmark mafia. The blue checkmark mafia. The blue checkmark mafia, they don't have any followers. So you know, as a humble man, I have a verified tab on my Twitter feed. So I can go in and only see what people who are verified are saying about me. And that's where, honestly, I spend most of my time, because I don't have time to go through the thousands or tens of thousands of mentions that I get every day now. So I'll go in and go see what the blue checkmark mafia are saying. And a lot of those dudes, it's almost all dudes, a lot of those dudes take shots at me all the time. They're trying to tag me, trying to get me to come out and shiv them, like we're in a prison cafeteria. And every now and then I do pull out the shiv and just take somebody out in the prison cafeteria because I feel like we got to have prison rules that apply every now and then. But the blue checkmark loser mafia bros, you know what they do? They don't actually have any fans. They don't actually have any readers. They don't actually have any viewers. They're just like dogs that are barking inside of a fence. And all they do is just yap. And nobody pays attention to them. Because they're little chihuahuas running along the fence. Nobody else is with them, just yapping away. Bunch of losers. Really, Twitter would be vastly improved if they took away like 90% of verified check marks. Because there's no way that all these people deserve to be verified. But I love all of you. I appreciate all of you. Remember, when you're given a choice between positivity and negativity, positivity always wins. You know how the story is going to end. As I told you from the get-go, we're going to kick the coronavirus's ass. What you didn't know, and still may not know officially, is exactly when that's going to be complete. But we're going to have an amazing summer. It's going to be the best July 4th of all time. I'm telling you that right now. I believe all the sports are coming rolling back that you have been missing, to such an extent that I told my wife we're going to have to take our summer vacation in May, because once it gets into June, July, and August, it's going to be crazy with all the events that are going on. So I love all of you. I hope you have a fantastic April 6th. Remember, I'm a man. I'm 40. You can follow me on Twitter at Clay Travis. You can follow me on Facebook. You can find me everywhere. We'll be live tomorrow again for 3 hours of radio. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. Kiss you. See y'all. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See y'all.